Hi everyone, glory to Jesus Christ and welcome back to my channel. So it's Lent right now, and what better time than Lent to talk about spiritual warfare? And specifically this video is about, for those of you who are turning east, for those of you who are thinking about becoming Orthodox Christians, or maybe you've already decided but you're not quite there yet, maybe you're entering catechesis class, or maybe you are there, maybe you've just been chrismated, whatever your situation is, if you're kind of sort of maybe new, you need to understand this information. You need to understand that you are in a war for your very soul and that there is absolutely a target on your back. And if you can recognize these kind of roadblocks, these kind of demonic attacks that are going to crop up, and they probably are already, if you recognize what's really going on, it's going to make it a lot easier to deal with it. Because the devil works through fear and disinformation. And so if we understand, okay, I'm in a really bad situation right now and part of my life is kind of falling apart, but I know why. I know who's behind it and I know who to reach out to for help. It makes it better. It makes it a spiritually profitable struggle versus a struggle that leads to despair. Because one of the demon's greatest tactics in 21st century modern life is making you think that they don't exist. So if you don't believe that they exist, if you don't believe that spiritual warfare is anything more than just a poetic phrase, you are so much more vulnerable to suffering a grievous fall that you would not have suffered if you had really known and accepted the reality of what is going on. So I liken this to the military. A soldier who is in a war is wearing armor. They're carrying weapons. They are using, tactical movement strategies. They try to figure out where the enemy is and what the enemy is doing and what the enemy is likely to do next. Okay. That individual, that soldier, is much more vigilant and is much better protected than someone who lives in a war zone but just refuses to acknowledge it and goes outside wearing shorts and flip-flops and is just basically asking to get obliterated. And so it is with our spiritual lives and with the journey east. You must understand, when we talk about demons, we're not talking about, oh, my demons, that kind of pop culture, limp-wristed, effeminate, oh, my demons, meaning my issues. No, we're talking about actual literal beings that want to drag your soul down to hell, period. So let's talk about how this happens. And this is terrifying. It's absolutely chilling. The minute that you start to take steps east, the minute that you start to move toward the church, what's going to happen? I'll tell you what's not going to happen. What's not going to happen is the devil is not going to show up in your living room. When we think of, demonic oppression or demonic whatever, when we think of that, we tend to think of Hollywood. We tend to think of big, scary, red guy with the horns. That's not going to happen. Why? Well, if that happened, it would probably send you running and screaming into the arms of the church, wouldn't it? He'd be shooting himself in his own hooves, feet. He'd be defeating his own purpose. So instead, what happens is these complications in life start to crop up. And if you are asleep with your spiritual eyes, you're not going to realize what's actually going on. You're just going to think, I've got all this stuff in my life that's going wrong. All these issues are happening. All these temptations are happening. But you're not going to realize that there is a spiritual meaning to it. Newsflash. There is no such thing as secular. Get rid of that whole notion of secular versus spiritual or secular versus religious. That's a false dichotomy. It's a demonic lie. Life is spiritual. Period. And so when you have realized this and you're saying, okay, I kind of sort of maybe get it. I understand. I'm moving toward the truth now. Well, the devil's not going to be very happy with you. And he's going to do his darndest to do one of two things. Number one is he will try to prevent your entry into the church through any means possible. If he does not succeed in this, he will then switch to battle plan phase 2. And battle plan phase 2 is he will attempt to get you to lose any kind of spiritual progress that you make and suffer a grievous fall to the point where all of your prayer and all of your struggling and all the sacrifices that you have made, all of that stuff, all of that effort and spiritual struggle will ultimately be fruitless. Ultimately, there will be no benefit to your soul from it because he can rob you of it if you let him. Knowing that he does this is not going to stop it. But if you know that things are happening for that reason, you're much better equipped to deal with them because you understand the source. And so it's no longer a big scary mystery of why is this happening. That robs him of a lot of his power and his effectiveness, because the minute you realize what's going on, you know immediately what you need to do, which is to cry out to God for help. So let's go through some examples, passion by passion. This is far from a complete list. I'm throwing out examples. So just ask yourself, if this sounds like me, maybe this will happen. You could have every single one of these things happen to you, or you could have something else that I haven't even thought of happen to you. But the point is constant vigilance, you know, like the seraphim in the book of Revelation are supposed to be eyes all around. Same thing. We have to try to be like that. So, for example, if you are prone to anger, and if you are prone to remembering wrongs, get ready to be wronged and offended a lot. Potentially by people that you really care about, potentially by people who are really important to you in your life, people that you have to see a lot. Be prepared for that discord. Be prepared for that. And when that conflict comes, you understand they're not the problem. The problem is there's this temptation that's going on because you're prone to anger, because that's one of your favorite passions. And so the devil is trying to stoke that in you. If you are prone to greed, this is a big one. If you're prone to greed, expect opportunities for profit that require you to either not go to church or to participate in activities that a Christian cannot participate in. So, for example, maybe you get offered a significant pay raise at work, but you have to work every Sunday all day, or every other Sunday. Or maybe it's you get an offer of a job, but doing that job is an unchristian thing to do. So maybe you get a job offer to work at a medical clinic that does abortions. Right? So think about that for a minute, right? Because if you take that job, you're profiteering off of murdered children. There's another possible thing here with the greed, and that is you may find yourself being invited to join the Freemasons or the Order of the Eastern Star or any one of the other kind of affiliated loosely secret societies, which are known for being places where business people often network, and they can be very lucrative. Membership in those organizations can be very lucrative for people in many professions. Lucrative in the sense of the filthy lucre of the world, not spiritually lucrative. No. Well, guess what? We're not allowed to participate in those societies. So then you have to make a choice. Well, geez, I'm tempted because if I become a Freemason, then I get to network with all of these people. And the person who invited to sponsor me to join is somebody in my field and I really respect them, blah, 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 blah. I could make all this money. I could make all these contacts. I could start saving for my kids' college fund. Let me do that. No. No. Don't do it. That's coming from the devil. Ignore. Don't give in to that. And by the way, if you struggle with loneliness, that's going to make it even harder too, because when you join a secret society, all of a sudden it's like instant friends, instant community. Don't fall for it. It's demonic lie. If you are prone to lust of any kind, it could be heterosexual, it could be same-sex attraction, it could be anything, okay? If you are prone to lust, buckle up and get ready. because the temptations, they're around already, but they're about to get worse. And it could be, you know, the demons are incredibly sadistic. It could even be that there is a lustful temptation that is coming at you from somebody that is in the church that you are thinking of joining or that you've just joined. And it could be a situation, right? For example, let's say that you are suffering from a same-sex attraction, right? And you understand that you cannot indulge in that temptation. So you're struggling, and God bless you for struggling. And then maybe you become a catechumen at a parish and there's another person there. And that other person there you find very attractive. And so maybe you guys become friends. And then one of you confesses to the other one that you're struggling with this passion. And then the floodgates open, and before you know it, mutual attraction, a great fall has occurred. That's not a coincidence that these situations happen like this. It is not. So you have to understand the big picture here. Satan plays the long con. All right? If you're prone to cowardice, this is another scary one. They're all scary. I'm probably going to say that after everyone. They're all scary, but cowardice, right? Cowardice could manifest itself in, for example, let's say you have a family member and that family member has a huge problem with your religious inclination. It could be that maybe they're an atheist, maybe they are an agnostic, maybe they are of another faith, or maybe they are a Christian, but they are for some reason very, very upset and offended that you want to be Orthodox. Okay. This is really where the rubber meets the road. You have to decide, do I love Christ more than I love my mother, my father, my family, my friends, my coworkers, whoever, right? Because our Lord has said, he who loves anybody else more than me is not worthy of me. And so that's a test of spiritual courage. And it's horrible and it's difficult. And hopefully, I mean, I would not wish that kind of battle on my worst enemy. I don't have enemies, I don't think. I hope I don't. But do you know what I mean? I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but it happens a lot. I had to go through that, unfortunately. Glory to God, after a couple months, the person who was not speaking to me decided to speak to me again, and that was very good. But yeah, it was hard, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It might not be a parent or a sibling, but at some point, if you are prone to cowardice, you will be tempted to shut the conversion machine down because it's going to ruffle people's feathers. Be prepared for that. Now, here's the worst one. Here's the worst one. This is important. Listen up. If you're prone to pride, and we all are, but if you're especially prone to pride, check out what the devil can do. He might actually smooth the road in front of you. Make it easy. Make it conflict-free or almost conflict-free for you to get into the church. Why? Why on earth would he do that? Because he knows that you're tempted to pride and he wants you to feel in your heart a little bit puffed up. Like, oh, well, I must be spiritually advanced already because everyone else is talking about all their struggles to come to the church, and look at me, I just kind of breezed in here. I must already be pretty holy. I didn't even notice those troubles. Well, that's because he got them out of the way for you because he knew you were going to cause your own fall with your arrogance. Right? So sometimes a lack of problems is itself a problem. And we have to be aware of that. That one's hard to recognize sometimes. There's other manifestations of pride too. One of them that you hear Orthodox people talking about a lot is called convertitis. And convertitis happens when you have somebody who joins the church and they're all excited and they know a lot of things already. You know, they know a lot of facts and they're very zealous to do everything correctly, but it's almost like being, you know, quote unquote correct. It can become an idol almost. And you start thinking that maybe you know more than your priest or more than a bishop or more than other people around you. And that's pride, that's arrogance. We have to try to not do that. That one's hard. That one's hard. I will confess to you, I had to get called out on that a couple times. It comes from a good place in the sense of zeal, but your zeal can become an idol if you don't know when to kind of shut up and humble yourself. So just be aware of that. Be aware of that. And then, of course, there's that danger, which goes hand in hand with convertitis, of trying to get the speck out of your brother's eye while you have the, redwood forest in your own. Okay? And that's a kind of a false piety, that spiritual self-delusion. Because what happens is you're tempted to think, oh, well, look, I'm hyper aware of spiritual things now. I am more spiritual than thou. So I can see now all of these things that are wrong with other people. Right? And it's like virtue signaling. It's a way to feel like your priorities are right. And it's a way to feel like you love God's law and you're trying to follow it. But the problem is, if you're looking at other people's sins, you're not looking at your own. And you're not repenting and trying to abase yourself so that at the judgment you will be lifted up again. You got to keep your eyes open. If you are criticizing anybody or judging anybody, your target better be yourself. Because you're the only one that you can change. And you're the only one that you can ultimately control. And another danger of that kind of convertitis, of that kind of judging, or just kind of pointing out things, is you can turn people off to the faith. This is really serious. And that happens a lot, not if you're going to talk to somebody directly about a problem that you see that they're doing. I mean, you shouldn't do that. But a lot of times what happens is somebody might be talking to a third party. And they're kind of venting about somebody else. But what happens is that third party might begin to get a sense like, oh, well, geez, if that's how the Orthodox are, I was a little curious, but now maybe I'm not. So we don't want to give that impression to people. We are all walking billboards for the church, whether we know it or not, whether we want to be or not. We simply are. So everything we do reflects not only on us, but it reflects on the church. And so, of course, we want to acknowledge that sin is sin and sin is real and sin needs to be repented of, but that the only person that I'm really going to rebuke, or really should rebuke, is myself. And, I mean, if you have kids, of course, it's also your responsibility to train your kids, but they're your kids. That's different. So we have to fight against all of that stuff. Final point. I have to remember that the devil cannot compel any of us to sin. He does not have that power. He is simply permitted to encourage temptations. And then we have to actually screw up ourselves. Because God has given no one license to sin. There's never an excuse for sin. We can never say, the devil made me do it. He didn't make you do anything. You made a bad choice. You did what you wanted to do rather than what God wanted you to do, right? So the fact that these are demonic roadblocks, the fact that we're in a war and that this is demonic oppression, okay, absolutely is not an excuse for any of us to kind of go along with his plan. And of course, we all do. We're all in the arena. We all fail. But what we should do when we fail is get up, dust ourselves off, repent, learn from it, and not do it again. So God give us the grace to run the race that is set before us, both in Lent and outside of Lent. Running into the arms of he who is the author and finisher of our faith. And as long as you keep getting up and starting to run again, he will come out to meet you before you even hit the finish line. I promise you that. And I can promise you that because he has promised us all that. So I hope that you all are having a calm, peaceful, blessed Lent in whatever part of the world you are. And if you are not, you're in my prayers. You're all in my prayers regardless. I hope you know that. I mean that sincerely. And I sincerely ask for your prayers as well. I certainly need them. And Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video. Please save this video and refer back to it if at any point in the future, maybe you need a reminder of what's really going on. I love you all, and I'll see you real soon in the next video. Bye.